Right now, your arteries are either quietly staying clear or quietly getting narrower. There is no middle ground, no pause button, and no warning siren. The process happens every single day, one meal at a time, and most people have no idea which foods are doing the most damage. Most people think clogged arteries are caused by eating too much fat, so they switch to low-fat products, cut out butter, avoid eggs, and feel like they are doing the right thing. But millions of people doing exactly that are still developing arterial plaque, still having heart attacks, and still being told their arteries are in serious trouble. Because the real story of what clogs arteries is far more specific, far more surprising, and hiding in foods that most people eat every single day without a second thought. It is not the fat on your plate that is destroying your arteries. It is what the food industry has been putting inside your food for decades. Think about the last week of eating. Maybe there was some deli meat on a sandwich, a handful of crackers in the afternoon, something fried at a restaurant, a packaged snack that seemed reasonable, or a flavored sauce that made dinner taste better. Nothing dramatic, nothing that felt dangerous. Just ordinary, familiar food, the kind that fills most grocery carts and most kitchens across the country. And yet, inside some of those ordinary foods are 5 specific things that researchers have identified as among the most damaging substances the arterial wall ever encounters. Today we are going to name them clearly, explain exactly what they do, and give you the information you need to make smarter choices starting this week. Here is what we are going to cover. Your arteries are not simply pipes that either stay open or get blocked. They are living tissue, lined with cells that respond to what flows past them every single day. When the wrong substances arrive repeatedly, those cells become inflamed, damaged, and eventually begin accumulating plaque, a mixture of fat, cholesterol, calcium, and cellular debris that slowly narrows the artery from the inside. We are going to look at 5 specific foods that drive this process most aggressively, what each one does at the cellular level, and where each one is hiding in everyday meals. Clear language, real information, nothing exaggerated. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 5 foods are most consistently linked to arterial damage, why each one is dangerous in a way that goes beyond simple cholesterol, and what you can realistically do about it starting today. This is the kind of information that changes how you read a label, how you order at a restaurant, and how you stock your kitchen, permanently. This video is for educational purposes only, and is not a substitute for personal medical advice from your own doctor. Please consult your healthcare provider for guidance specific to your health situation. Food number 1, trans fats and partially hydrogenated oils. The first food on this list is one that has been quietly damaging arteries for decades, and while regulators have worked to reduce it in recent years, it is still present in far more products than most people realize. We are talking about trans fats, specifically the artificial kind created through a process called partial hydrogenation. Here is what partial hydrogenation means in plain language. Manufacturers take liquid vegetable oils and force hydrogen through them under pressure, which converts them into a solid or semi-solid fat that is cheaper to produce, has a longer shelf life, and improves the texture of processed foods. The problem is that this industrial process creates a type of fat molecule that the human body was never designed to encounter. When trans fats enter the bloodstream, they do something that no other dietary fat does to quite the same degree. They simultaneously raise LDL cholesterol, the kind that contributes to plaque buildup, and lower HDL cholesterol, the kind that helps clear plaque from arteries. This double effect on cholesterol alone makes trans fats uniquely damaging. But the damage does not stop there. Trans fats also trigger inflammation directly in the arterial wall. They disrupt the normal function of the endothelium, the delicate single-cell layer lining every artery in the body, which is the very layer responsible for keeping the arterial wall smooth, flexible, and resistant to plaque formation. When the endothelium is inflamed and dysfunctional, it becomes sticky. Plaque begins to accumulate. The artery begins to narrow. Where are trans fats hiding today? Despite regulatory pressure, partially hydrogenated oils remain in many packaged baked goods, microwave popcorn, refrigerated dough products, non-dairy creamers, stick margarines, and packaged snacks. A product can legally be labeled zero trans fats if it contains less than half a gram per serving, which means if you eat more than one serving, you are consuming trans fats without knowing it. The way to identify them is to look past the front of the package and read the ingredient list. If the words partially hydrogenated appear anywhere in that list, the product contains trans fats regardless of what the nutrition label says. Research shows that replacing trans fats with whole food sources of healthy fat, like olive oil, nuts, and avocado, begins to improve arterial flexibility and reduce inflammation markers within weeks of consistent change. The arterial wall responds to better inputs faster than most people expect. Food number 2, processed meats. The second food on this list is one that appears at breakfast tables, in lunch sandwiches, at backyard cookouts, and on restaurant menus across the country every single day. Processed meats, including hot dogs, bacon, sausage, deli meats, pepperoni, salami, and cured ham, are among the most consistently studied and most consistently flagged foods in cardiovascular research. The danger in processed meats does not come from just one compound. It comes from a combination of several that work together to damage arteries from multiple directions at once. The first is sodium. Processed meats are extraordinarily high in sodium, often containing 400 to 1,200 milligrams in a single serving. Chronically high sodium intake raises blood pressure by increasing the volume of fluid the blood vessels must carry. Elevated blood pressure is one of the most significant mechanical stresses the arterial wall faces. Over time, that constant pressure damages the inner lining of arteries, creating microscopic injuries that become entry points for plaque formation. The artery does not simply stretch to accommodate the pressure, it stiffens, thickens, and scars. The second danger is nitrates and nitrites, preservatives added to most processed meats to extend shelf life and maintain color. When these compounds are consumed and processed in the body, they can convert into substances called nitrosamines, which have been shown to promote arterial inflammation and oxidative stress, a process where unstable molecules damage cells throughout the body, including the cells lining the arterial wall. The third factor is a compound called TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide. Processed meats are high in a nutrient called L-carnitine, which gut bacteria convert into TMAO when digested. High TMAO levels in the blood have been directly associated with increased plaque formation inside arteries and a higher risk of cardiovascular events. This is a relatively recent discovery in cardiovascular research, but it is one of the most significant because it reveals a mechanism of arterial damage from processed meat that goes beyond simple fat and sodium content. Reducing processed meat does not mean eliminating all meat. Unprocessed lean proteins, fresh poultry, fish, legumes, and eggs do not carry the same combination of sodium, nitrates, and TMAO precursors that processed meats do. The swap is specific and targeted, not a blanket elimination of protein. Some people are thinking right now, what about turkey or chicken deli meat? That must be healthier, right? Unfortunately, the processing method, not the type of meat, is what creates the damage. And turkey and chicken deli meats contain the same sodium and nitrate levels as their red meat counterparts. It is the processing that makes it dangerous, not just the animal it came from. Food number 3, refined carbohydrates and added sugar. The third food category on this list is perhaps the most surprising to people who still believe that dietary fat is the primary villain in cardiovascular disease. Refined carbohydrates and added sugar, white bread, white rice, pasta made from refined flour, pastries, sweetened cereals, crackers, and anything made with added sugar are now among the most well-studied contributors to arterial disease, and the mechanism by which they cause damage is genuinely important to understand. When refined carbohydrates are eaten, they are digested and converted into glucose extremely rapidly, faster than the body can efficiently manage. Blood sugar spikes sharply. In response, the pancreas releases a surge of insulin to bring that blood sugar back down. This rapid rise and fall of blood sugar, happening multiple times a day in people who eat refined carbs regularly, creates a specific type of stress on the arterial wall called glycation. Glycation occurs when glucose molecules attach themselves to proteins in the blood and in the arterial wall. This process stiffens the arterial tissue, damages the endothelial lining, and makes the wall more vulnerable to inflammation and plaque buildup. Think of it as a kind of caramelization happening inside the arteries, the same process that browns sugar when you heat it, happening slowly and continuously inside the body. Added sugar, particularly fructose, which, as we discussed in a previous video, goes directly to the liver, also drives up triglyceride levels in the blood. Triglycerides are a type of fat that circulates in the bloodstream, and elevated triglycerides are an independent risk factor for arterial plaque formation. High triglycerides often appear in blood work alongside normal or even low LDL cholesterol, which is one of the reasons why people with seemingly acceptable cholesterol numbers can still be developing arterial disease. The chronic insulin elevation that comes with regular, refined carbohydrate consumption also promotes inflammation throughout the body. Inflammation in the arterial wall is not just a side effect of clogged arteries. It is the driving force behind plaque formation. When the arterial wall is inflamed, it attracts immune cells. Those immune cells engulf oxidized LDL cholesterol. Those engorged immune cells become what researchers call foam cells. And foam cells are the building blocks of arterial plaque. Refined carbohydrates and sugar set this entire process in motion, repeatedly, every time they are consumed in significant amounts. Before watching this video, did you know that refined carbohydrates and sugar could damage arteries through a completely separate mechanism from dietary fat? Drop a yes or no in the comments. This one surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. Food number 4, fried foods. The fourth food on this list is one that most people already suspect is not great for health, but the specific reason why fried foods damage arteries goes deeper than most people realize, and it is not simply about fat content or calories. When foods are cooked in oil at the high temperatures required for frying, typically between 350 and 375 degrees Fahrenheit, something happens to the oil itself that makes it biologically dangerous. The high heat causes the oil to undergo a process called oxidation. Oxidized oil contains compounds called aldehydes and lipid peroxides, chemically unstable molecules that are directly toxic to the cells lining the arterial wall. When oxidized fats enter the bloodstream after being consumed, they interact with LDL cholesterol in the blood and cause it to become oxidized as well. Oxidized LDL is significantly more dangerous than regular LDL. It is the oxidized form specifically, not LDL in general, that the immune cells in the arterial wall engulf, creating those foam cells and the early-stage plaque deposits that begin the narrowing process. Regular LDL in moderate amounts does not trigger this immune response nearly as aggressively. Oxidized LDL does. There is another compound produced specifically during high-temperature frying of starchy foods, such as French fries, fried chips, and fried breaded items, called acrylamide. Acrylamide forms when starch is cooked at very high temperatures, and it has been associated with increased oxidative stress and vascular inflammation in research settings. Commercial frying compounds the problem further. Restaurant fryers and food manufacturing facilities often use the same oil repeatedly over extended periods. Each time oil is reheated, the concentration of oxidized compounds increases. A food fried in fresh oil and a food fried in oil that has been reheated many times are not the same food from an arterial health perspective, even if they look identical on the plate. Occasional home cooking with fresh oil at appropriate temperatures is a very different situation from regularly consuming commercially fried foods. The frequency and the source both matter significantly. For people focused on arterial health, replacing fried foods with roasted, baked, steamed, or sautéed alternatives, cooked in fresh olive oil or avocado oil at appropriate temperatures, removes one of the most direct sources of oxidized fat from the diet. Food number 5. Excess sodium through ultra-processed foods. The fifth food on this list is not a single food. It is a category that now makes up a majority of the packaged, convenience, and fast foods that fill most modern diets. Ultra-processed foods, products manufactured with combinations of refined ingredients, artificial additives, flavor enhancers, emulsifiers, and very high amounts of sodium, are the primary vehicle through which most people consume far more salt than their cardiovascular system can safely handle over time. The connection between high sodium and arterial damage is one of the most replicated findings in cardiovascular research. Chronically elevated sodium intake raises blood pressure through a well-understood mechanism. The kidneys, which regulate fluid balance in the body, respond to high sodium by retaining more water in the bloodstream to dilute the sodium concentration. This increases the total volume of blood the heart must pump and the arteries must carry. That increased pressure, sustained day after day, year after year, does mechanical damage to the arterial wall. But the damage from ultra-processed foods goes beyond sodium alone. These foods are typically engineered to maximize palatability, to be highly rewarding and very easy to overconsume, while delivering minimal nutritional value. They drive overeating through the combination of refined carbohydrates, added sugars, sodium, and manufactured flavors that override normal satiety signals. The result is not just high sodium intake, but an overall dietary pattern that chronically elevates blood sugar, triglycerides, and inflammatory markers simultaneously. Ultra-processed foods also tend to be very low in potassium, a mineral that works in direct opposition to sodium in the body, helping relax blood vessel walls and lower blood pressure. The combination of very high sodium and very low potassium in the ultra-processed food pattern creates a double disadvantage for arterial health. Research consistently shows that what matters for cardiovascular risk is not just sodium in isolation, but the sodium to potassium ratio in the overall diet. Whole foods, vegetables, legumes, fruits, nuts, and unprocessed proteins naturally deliver high potassium alongside lower sodium, creating a ratio the cardiovascular system handles well. Reading sodium on food labels is a practical and immediately useful habit for anyone concerned about arterial health. A general guideline supported by cardiovascular research is to keep daily sodium intake below 2,300 milligrams, the equivalent of about 1 teaspoon of salt total across the entire day. Many single ultra-processed meals contain more than that. Becoming aware of sodium content in packaged foods, sauces, soups, seasoning packets, frozen meals, and snacks is one of the most direct interventions available for managing blood pressure and reducing mechanical stress on arterial walls. Research consistently shows that blood pressure begins to respond to meaningful sodium reduction within 2 to 4 weeks, and lower blood pressure directly reduces the mechanical stress that accelerates arterial damage every single day. Every meal is an opportunity to give your arteries a better environment to heal in. Before we close, I want to hear from you. Out of these 5 foods, trans fats, processed meats, refined carbs and sugar, fried foods, and ultra-processed high-sodium foods, which one surprised you the most today? Drop it in the comments. Your answer might be the exact thing someone else needed to see to finally take their arterial health seriously. And if this video gave you something genuinely useful, please share it with someone you care about. A spouse, a sibling, a friend. Heart disease does not have to be inevitable, but it does have to be understood first. Thank you for being here today. Your arteries have been working for you every single second of your life, quietly, faithfully, without asking for anything. What you learned today is a way to give something back, not through dramatic restriction or fear, but through simple, specific, informed choices made one meal at a time. That is all it takes. Take good care of yourself, stay curious, stay well, and I will see you in the next one.